Hello there and welcome to another video. In today's one, we are going to do a little bit of virtual machines. So the scenario I have chosen for today is something that I personally care about, and I hope it will be helpful for you as well. So the scenario is a bit like this. I have a remote server on which I want to host virtual machines. Basically, the remote means it is hosted in my other room, so not exactly as remote as you would think, right? But I do usually use my primary PC, and the server that I have in another room is headless, right? It's not connected to any kind of monitor, keyboard, mouse, or anything like that. It's just a raw server to which I connect remotely, and then I manage whatever I have on it, right? So right now I want to host a lot of different services on it, right? I want to put my Pi-hole on that server. Currently it's on my Raspberry Pi. I want to put my PeerTube server on it. I want to put all kinds of servers, Nextcloud, etc. There will be a lot of stuff, a lot of different stuff on this server. And some of these things can clash a little bit in regards to which web server they are using, in regards to which database they are using, and the configuration gets a lot more complex if you're doing it all on one operating system. So there are two ways to mitigate this. One is containers and another one is virtual machines. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to do virtual machines on a remote server. So let's start by logging into our server, right? So what you're looking right now, this is my local PC and my local monitor, right? So let's go ahead and first log into my remote server. I know for a fact that my remote server is on this IP at the moment because I use DHCP at home, and on my other screen I have my DHCP leases open so I can follow which IP is currently assigned to what device. This can be particularly useful for this scenario if you're not doing the static IP addresses. I would generally recommend you to do static IP addressing, but I do a lot of changes, so for me personally, I kind of prefer to use DHCP to assign IP addresses, and the way I make them static is by telling my DHCP server at which server I want which IP address to be always assigned. So the IP address that you have seen here is a temporary IP address of my server, and we are going to change this very, very soon. Okay, so first of all, you want to install a couple of things, right? I have pasted this from my other screen. You can do the no install recommends switch if you are actually doing this on the server, because doing this will avoid the installation of all of the GUI tools that we really don't need, because on this server I don't have anything in regards to GUI. If I don't do this command, then these other tools are going to pull a lot of X related requirements, and there will be a whole ton of stuff that I really don't need on the server. So this is what I'm using on the server. We are going to use QEMU, KVM virtual machine, right? The genuine Linux virtual machine, libvirt clients, daemon system, virt install. This is a command package that is going to give you an opportunity to configure virtual machines when you are logged in locally in the server or remotely, whatever. I mean, via the command line. But we're not going to actually use this today. So you might as well not install this package, but I would recommend having it at hand if you need to configure your virtual machines on the server itself. We are going to make our virtual machines use a bridged interface because by default, KVM, QEMU will make all your virtual machines to use dedicated subnet, and then they are going to be network address translated into your actual network. So they will have internet access by default. If that's enough for you, then you don't need to do the bridge thing. But if you are going to make your virtual machines servers, which is what I'm doing, then it is a good idea to be able to actually get into them, right? And not be forced to do all of the port forwardings. So we are going to make a bridged interface on the host server so that each virtual machine is going to get its own IP address in my local network at home, right? So whichever subnet I'm using for the server and for my PC, virtual servers will also get IP address from that same subnet. This is what Bridge does. This is a package that we need if we are going to do the UEFI thing on the virtual machines. This package will be needed for installing the virtual machines as well, and this one you also need to install. All of these are super critical for the regular installation that we are going to do. So go ahead and install all of that and pull all of the dependencies that are going to come along, right? So first things first, I need to give my user Dart a way to orchestrate the virtual machines, right? So what you're going to do here, sudo add user Dart or your username, not the root one, your actual username with which you're doing all of the things on your server, and add it to the group libvirt. There we go, adding user Dart to the group libvirt. This is the way we're going to be able to control our virtual machines. So go ahead and type virsh list /all, and you need to get some kind of output, right? This is where it lists our virtual machines. It is okay that we don't have any because we didn't make any, but it is important that this command actually works for you. If it doesn't work, then you might have already made a mistake in the very beginning. So go back and see if you can fix it, right? So now I'm going to exit back to my local PC from which I'm doing the connection to my server. And what you want to do, you're going to do the SSH keygen here. The reason why you want to do this is because you want to be able to SSH into your server without a password. This is going to be important because we are going to use a locally installed GUI to configure virtual machines. This is a lot easier than using command line, and it will make it a lot easier to actually configure your virtual machines and actually use them along with the graphical user interface. So when I say local GUI, I mean local on your PC. So the actual virtual machines are going to be entirely hosted on your server, but on your PC, whichever it is, it can be a really, really weak laptop. It really doesn't matter. Here you're going to have a remote GUI access to your PC, right? So in order to do this as transparently as possible and without tinkering with passwords too much, we are going to make it so that we can SSH into our server passwordless. And don't worry, this is secure. So do the SSH keygen like I wrote here. I have already done this previously, so I don't want to run over my previous configuration. Just press enter here and finish the configuration. If it asks for any kind of password, just press enter and don't use a password here. at this prompt. And once you're done, then you want to copy your ID into the remote server, right? And since my remote server is 176, just type ssh-copy-id and your username at the IP address of your server. If your IP address is going to change on your server, this doesn't really matter. What matters is that your SSH keys get carried over to the server, right? When you do this for the first time, it will ask you the password of your username on your remote server. Of course, you're going to type your password here, and this procedure will be done in a second, right? And after that, you will be able to log in into your server with just SSH and the IP address. Of course, if your username is the same on your local PC and on your remote PC. If your usernames are not the same, then type your username on the remote server. So Dart at your IP address, and voila, we are going to be logged in back into our server, right? Okay, so go to a second tab on your local command line interface on your local PC, right? And go ahead and install virt-manager. It doesn't really matter on which Linux operating system you are on your local PC. Just use your package installation method, whichever you have on your distribution. And for me, it is pacman, right? Sudo pacman. Let's search for it, right? Virt-manager. Okay. My password, and voila, yeah, it's in extras. So let's go ahead and remove the lower caps S so that it will actually install. It will pull some packages. This is fine. Just go ahead and install it. Do the rehash thing. Run your virt-manager here, and it will automatically complain that it cannot connect to your local QEMU KVM server. Of course, it cannot because you haven't actually installed it on your local PC, and we are not even going to do that. So just go ahead and delete the default connection and go ahead to add connection, and we are going to make a new one. So from this GUI that we are working with, we want to be able to remote control the QEMU slash KVM virtual machine server on the remote server, right? So from the hypervisor lists here, don't choose any of these options because all of these are local. You have to go with the custom URL. Okay, so type this QEMU plus SSH semicolon 2 slashes and then your username on the server at the current IP address of your server slash system. Okay, I'm going to write it down below this video in the description so you can copy paste it. Press connect, and in a couple of seconds you should be able to connect to the actual QEMU server on the other side. And voila, we are now connected. If you didn't get any errors, this means that you're connected. So let's go ahead and remove this off the screen for a moment. So if I type df for you, you will see that I have like 100 gigabytes available space on my root, and my actual default storage is somewhere on this partition. And the reason why I want to change this is because the 100 gigabytes is really not enough for what I need. So I have already prepared another SSD, which is also plugged in into my server, right? This one is like 3.6 terabytes, and I have already mounted it before I started this video, right? So if you go ahead and cd to the Quattro directory. Quattro is just a funky name because it's 4 terabytes, right, on the paper. So I want my virtual machines to actually physically live on this SSD, right? So go ahead and make a special folder for your virtual machines on your new destination. Right? Okie dokie. So at this moment, we have a new folder here, and we are going to assign the default storage pool from the default location into the new location where I have a lot more space. So first things first, do the virsh pool dash edit and then the name of the default pool, which is, well, default. Edit that one and go ahead and see where the path is to the current location where the actual images are going to be stored, right? So just wipe that all off and type the new path to where you want your images to be stored. Save it and exit your editor, right? So first things first, now you're going to destroy the existing pool. Be careful about destroying the pools, because if you have previously done anything in regards to configuring virtual machines on your server, this command will destroy your stuff. So just be warned and be careful about what you're destroying. For me, I don't have any virtual machines just yet, so I can freely destroy whatever I want. So now that we have destroyed it, now we want to rebuild it. Go with virsh pool dash build default, and this is going to build a new pool. And you want to start it then with virsh pool dash start. And now this has started. Pay attention that you should not get any error messages, right? And you also want to make sure that this pool automatically starts upon reboot of your server, right? So the next thing that we really want to do, we are going to configure our bridge. Okay, so go ahead, sudo that's network interfaces. I forgot to type the name of the editing application. Silly me. Okay, so what we are going to do here, we are going to add the bridge interface. So just copy paste everything off of my screen here. But it is important to tell bridge ports which physical network interface we are going to bridge, right? So I have this interface here, ENO1. Type the name, ENO1. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to create a new network interface called BR0 for bridge 0. We are going to assign the IP address via the DHCP server. If you want to do it manually, feel free to type static instead manual instead of DHCP and configure it manually. Bridge ports has to be the same name that you have for your physical interface, right? The next thing that we want to do, we don't really need our physical interface configuration anymore. So go ahead and save this and pay attention at this moment. Be very careful about what you're doing here, because if you don't have the way to access your server locally, there is a very high chance that you're going to cut off your connection to the server, right? If your server is not physically reachable for you, pay like 3 times the attention on what exactly is it that you're doing before you commit your changes. This is really important. If your server is your home lab, then feel free to experiment. Of course, you can always fix it by plugging in your keyboard locally into your server and just undoing what you did and trying again. No worries about that. I'm just warning you, if it is a really remote server, pay close attention to what you're doing, because if you remove the configuration from your actual networking interface through which you are actually communicating with your server, then you're not going to be able to reach it any longer. Okay, so after you have saved it, you now want to restart the networking, right? So just type IPA to see where we are at the moment. So we have our physical network ENO1, right? And we have the IP address 99.176. Okay, so right now we want to restart our networking interfaces, and all of this is going to refresh, and either I will lose the connection to the server or everything will continue functioning. We are going to see very, very soon. Restart networking. Okay, so at this point we still have our connection alive, which is nice. Type IPA to see what's up, literally. So ENO1 is still rocking the 176 IP address because the restart networking didn't actually shut it down. And the new address for the bridge is now 99.13. The reason why it's such a difference is because I have previously already configured the MAC address for my bridge in my DHCP server when it sees it to assign it a static IP address of 13. And this is from my dynamic DHCP pool. So don't worry too much about this. If you're at home with DHCP server, take care of this. If you're not, put static IP addresses. I would actually recommend static IP addresses more than using DHCP server. So have that in mind, right? So let's disconnect from this server and let's see if we can connect with our new IP address that is assigned on the bridge. So yeah, it definitely does function. So the next thing you want to do, you want to add a possibility for the virtual machines to actually use the new networking device. Okay, so just type the command virsh net dash define and then the /dev/stdin, which I cannot read all of these signs, but just copy paste them from my screen, right? And once you are in this prompt, then you want to type all of these commands, right? So all of these commands are going to be available both in my video description and on my webpage www.linuxrenaissance.com as one of my articles. Type enter here, type your password, and now we have defined a new networking interface for our virtual machines, right? So the next thing you want to do is actually start this networking with virsh net dash start bridge 0, and it says that it has started. So this is a really good sign. And you also want it to auto start. So a similar command, it says it has actually auto started. So all of this is perfectly good. Now let's go ahead and download our first ISO image from which we are going to install an operating system onto one of our new virtual machines, right? So go ahead to the whatever folder that you have assigned to be your destination folder that is going to host your virtual machines. And this is where you want to do the wget sudo. You're not going to be able to write to this folder as a normal user, so do the sudo wget and download your operating system which you want to install. So for me, this is going to be Debian, and I'm just gonna go and download the ISO image, right? So it says that I have a temporarily failure in name resolution. So let's give it a little bit of a reboot and see how it behaves. It is asking me to type its name so that I'm making sure that I reboot the correct host, right? This is called Mollyguard, Mollyward. y-guard. You can install it on any Debian-based system, and it gives you an ability to, well, it's going to warn you that you're about to reboot the system, and it is going to force you to type in the system name so that you're sure which exactly server that you're rebooting. So this is particularly useful if you have many Debian servers, right? Let's go ahead and connect to our server again and check our networking. At this point, we should no longer have the IP address assigned on our physical networking interface, right? So EN01, right? You can see it here. It is up, but it doesn't have an IP address anymore. The bridge, however, does. So let's go ahead to Quattro and Virtualke, and let's go ahead and download the Debian image again. Okay, so now it works. Apparently, I didn't do everything that was required in regards to configuring my network interfaces, so a fresh reboot makes sure that when you reboot your server, that everything will actually boot up properly and configure itself. Of course, you can fix it without rebooting, but I actually wanted to reboot the system so that I can be sure that upon reboot everything is applied properly. This is important for me. So sudo ls, and you can see in this folder that we now have the ISO image. This step isn't particularly required because when you're going to install a new virtual machines, you can have the ISO image on your local PC on which you're going to use the GUI on. But in this way, it is easier and practical for me because I am going to install multiple Debian installations on multiple virtual machines. So from this perspective, it is going to be easier, faster, and more practical for me. So decide on your own, but I'm just telling you and giving you heads up that you do not actually have to download ISO images onto the server itself, especially if you're going to install a particular operating system only once. In that case, it might actually be better if you just download the ISO image on your local PC, right? So let's go ahead and switch back to our virtual machine manager on the local computer, right? So let's go ahead into details. We have name, storage. Okay, I guess I'm going to have to delete it because the IP address has changed, right? So let's go ahead and make a new connection. So just as I said like 15 minutes ago, it is a better idea to make the bridge first because you want to be absolutely sure what is going to be the final IP address of your server, right? So let's go ahead and add the connection in the exact same way as we have done it previously, right? But this time with the new IP address, QEMU plus SSH and the rest of the string, right? As I said, this will all be written on my web page for sure. Auto connect, this is in regards to this GUI, right? So let's go ahead and connect to this one, right? Let's double click it and see how it works. Virtual networks, we have bridge, XML configuration, auto start on boot, storage, 3 point something terabytes free, 600 megabytes in use. We already have detected one ISO image on the destination storage, so apparently everything is working properly, right? So pay attention, the GUI application is running locally on my PC. I'm just making sure that you understand what is going on because otherwise there will be more questions. And the virtual machine server is remote. So if you have like more than one local PC, in my case, I have both a static PC and a laptop. and I will install Virtual Machine Manager on both of my PC and my laptop. And with both of them, I will be able to connect to the server to run and configure the same virtual machines, right? So go ahead this time and run the button that says new VM, right? Local install media. Go ahead to forward and click the browse button. Choose the ISO image. If you have a local ISO image, go with the plus, create new volume, or the plus on the bottom left corner. I actually forgot, but you can reach it locally. Just type of the click the button and delete the operating system that you're installing. If it wasn't properly detected, start typing the name of your operating system, click it here. So in my case it's Debian 12. Press forward, give it some RAM. So in my case this machine is going to get 512 megabytes of RAM, and this is because I'm going to install Pi-hole on this machine. I really don't need more than a half a gigabyte of memory. I actually don't even need this much, but just in case I wanted to have a proper space in RAM to breathe, right? CPUs, give it as much as you want. The difference between memory configuration and CPU configuration is if you're not going to use shared memory, and generally I wouldn't recommend that, then how much memory you assign to a virtual machine, if it is an actual running virtual machine, then that's how much less free RAM you're going to have on your host server, which is going to affect both your host server and the ability to assign RAM to other virtual machines, right? While with the CPU, you can always over provision the CPU to, I wouldn't say as much as you like, but use some common sense, right? If you if you have 6 cores, right, on your server, like I do, and you assign 6 cores to the first virtual machine, and then you make a new virtual machine, and then you assign again 6 cores to new virtual machines, then both of your virtual machines are going to have 6 cores. Is this 12 cores? No, this is still 6 cores, 6 physical cores. But what is going to happen is that both of these virtual machines, along with the host, are going to share the exact same 6 cores. So the cores are going to, you know, um, deal with one virtual machine and then with a different one and then with your host, right? And it is going to shuffle around. So for my Raspberry Pi, not Raspberry Pi, sorry about that. For my, I'm actually moving my Pi-hole from Raspberry Pi to this VM. So for my Pi-hole software, I really don't need more than 1 core. And what this is going to do, this is going to make sure that my host only ever uses a single core for this virtual machine. This is entirely enough for Pi-hole. For something else, you might want, like PeerTube, maybe you will probably want 2 or 3 cores to have available, one for transcoding and at least one for dealing with the customers, right? With people who view your videos. But if you make like 12 virtual machines and give 1 core to each one of them, this is still fine because you will have 6 cores available that are going to hop around between your virtual machines. Just make it smart. Okay, let's go forward. I don't know how much space am I going to need for all of the logs and etc. But don't be afraid to over provision the space, because this space is not going to be assigned immediately, right? Immediately on the physical SSD on my server, on my host, it is only going to take as much space as I have actually used. And the 32 gigabyte is actually the limit of my virtual hard drive. So the host operating system will believe that we have 32 gigabyte hard drive. This is what we are doing here. We are making it believe that it is installed on a 32 gigabyte hard drive. Enable storage, yeah, let's go ahead forward. We're going to call it Pi-hole. We are going to customize the configuration before installing. Network, you want to make sure that you choose the bridge 0 here and finish. Okay, this is going to open a new window. You might want to maximize this to see it better, right? So change the firmware to UEFI. I would recommend this and just apply it here. You don't have to touch the chipset. Operating system information is already filled. One virtual CPU has been allocated. Memory is 512 megabytes. Don't enable shared memory. Boot options, we're going to boot from virt IO disk 1. The disk bus is virt.io. SATA CD-ROM is already mounted with our ISO image. So from this virtual CD-ROM, we are going to install our operating system. Networking card is also the hardware type Virtio. This is good. Use the bridged networking. Link state active, of course. We don't have a tablet. We don't have a display at this point. Sound blaster doesn't really matter too much. Video, Virtio, this is all fine. Controller USB, if you're going to use USB ports, for example, if you're going to be wanting to plug in a USB stick into a virtual machine, you absolutely can do that by plugging in your USB stick into the host server and then opening your remote interface to your guest, right, to your virtual machine, and then passing through the USB connection from the physical machine to the virtual machine. And at that point, virtual machine will absolutely believe that you have directly plugged in a USB stick into it, into the virtual machine, right? So the rest is not that important. And let's go ahead and begin our installation. If you get any errors at this point, well, maybe drop me a message in replies or come to my Matrix chat room. This is even better. This is where we have a lot of people who are able to help. So let's, let's give you a hand if you're stuck, right? So already you can see that my machine is booting up properly, at least the installer. It is entering the low memory mode. This is fine because I have chosen 512 gigs. If you give it more, it will not complain. But generally, do what you will with your virtual machines, right? All of this is fine. Configure the keyboard. Let's stick with American English for here, for this. Network auto configuration has succeeded. So this is really important point in our whole scenario of this video. And basically, we're done at this point when you see that network auto configuration has succeeded. This means that the bridge is working. Virtual machine is obviously working. It has given us an IP address, and we can now install the rest of this system, right? So I'm just gonna fast forward to the end of this installation so that you can see what it looks like after you install the operating system completely, right? There we go. The installation has finished, apparently, and we are now doing the first boot. Okay, there we go. Start and my password. Okay, ping. There we go. We can ping the internet, right? So there you have it. I hope this rather long video has made some significant impact on you, because if you have came to the very end of this video, then apparently you are very interested in this topic, and I thank you very much for watching for this long. As I said, If you need more help with configuring virtual machines, come to my Matrix channel. We will do something in regards to this. If you leave a comment on YouTube, ah, sometimes comments get deleted, and I'm quite frankly very annoyed about that. So if you don't want your comment to be automatically deleted by YouTube, then post comments on my Odyssey video or on my PeerTube video. On these two places, I have never lived to see a comment deleted. I personally don't delete any comments, right? But they do get automatically deleted by YouTube for whatever reason, right? Um, if you don't have an account on Odyssey or PeerTube or Mastodon or whatever, then just come to my Matrix room. We will work something out. I want this to be a pleasurable experience for you. I am here in this free and open source community because I love helping people. I love teaching people. I love learning new things. I love learning from you guys. There are a couple of you who have actually been, teaching me some things that I really don't know, because not everyone knows everything, and I only just scratch the surface of what is possible on Linux, right? What amount of knowledge is waiting out there to be learned and tinker with and do your stuff and customizations and servers and whatnot. So if you appreciate my involvement in the free software community, you have my Coffee links down below. You can join my YouTube channel, you can join my Patreon, or you can just click the like and leave a comment on my video. I appreciate every single one of these gestures, and of course, I'm going to see you in the next video.